So believe it or not, Copilot for Power Apps is actually two different things. First, we got Copilot for Makers. Copilot for Makers is going to let us use natural language, aka our words, to say, hey, build me an app to do this thing. And then it's going to show me a table and then I'd be like, oh, massage the data, change the sample data, add some columns, remove some columns, manipulate it, all with words still, and then press the big purple button that says create the app. Poof, we've got an app. The second thing, we're going to see Copilot for Apps. And what that does is that allows you a natural chat experience, right? But it allows your users to use this and it's going to let them interact with their data. So we're going to point it at our data, right? I've got like an FAQ or maybe my Pokemon data. It doesn't matter. We point at that data and then we can start to ask it questions and it understands the data. So it can summarize the data and give me back answers like, hey, and so if that sounds exciting, then this video is the video for you. What we're going to do here is we're going to walk through a conversation with my good friend Clay Wessner from Microsoft. His team is kind of where this all came from. So he's going to give us some of the backstory of how this works, all the privacy information, talk about, the future of it, and just help us get all the context. But if that's not your jam, then if you look up there or down there somewhere, I've got a link to a second video, which is just my more traditional technical deep dive. But I really thought like this was a video that a lot of us need to start with because it gives us the why and understanding that it's not just kind of find and replace text. It is true AI intelligence on our own data. All right, that's enough of the blah, blah, blah. Let's switch over to the interview. Clay, oh my goodness, it's you.
Hi, Shane. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm fantastic. All the better for being on your YouTube channel.
Awesome. Well, I'm glad to have you. Now, Clay, I've known you for a million years, but all my viewers know you. I don't know why they don't. They should. Will you give us a quick overview of who the heck you are?
It's because you haven't had me on before. That's the only reason they don't know me, Shane. So I have the fortune of leading the Power App Studio product team. So we focus on all things Maker. So as you land at make.powerapps.com, anything you're using to build an app are things that my team drive across the product.
Gotcha. So pretty important guy to know. And just fun fact for everyone, right? So we all know I was late to the Dataverse game. Clay has been beating on me to learn Dataverse since it was CDM. Like 6 years ago, I was in his office like, hey, dude, what's this CDS thing? And he's like, blah, 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 blah.
And you just did a video.
I know. I feel like I'm a slow learner. Is that what you're trying to say?
Only 5 years later, but it was worth it as long as you got there in the end.
Well, that's all that matters. So speaking of getting there, you guys today, just moments ago, rolled out Copilot. Like, oh my goodness. What is this thing? I'm so excited. I can't even say. Like, what is this thing in your own words?
Copilot for Power Apps. So there's two parts I'm most excited about today. The first is Copilot for Makers. So this is really about enabling people to get started as quick as they can in building an app. And I'm talking about as simply as describing the type of app that you want. So I want to track inspections. I want to keep a list of equipment. And we'll generate a table, generate sample data, let you alter it, and then create an app. A responsive app, mind you, as well, that you can build straight out of the gate. The other part then that's really exciting as well is in that app, you have the ability to add an app Copilot control so that all of your end users of your app can actually use conversation as well to interact with the data within your app. So we're kind of bringing, natural language and conversation to help makers build apps, as well as adding it to apps so end users benefit from it as well.
So is this like all built like on top of the whole GPT thing? Like what's powering all this?
The whole GPT thing, yeah. So we use the Azure OpenAI service. So this is a service available within Microsoft, and it allows us to put the right guardrails and measures over those AI GPT models so that we can use them, but give you then some control and safety on top of them as well. But it's the Azure OpenAI service that's actually powering a lot of this natural language capability that we're bringing to the product at the moment.
Now, and so is this just something you guys started on last week? Like, are you guys new to AI or any of that? It's like what?
We are coming up on our 2-year anniversary thank you very much, of AI and GPT in the product. And so we released Power Apps Ideas in May of 2021. I was about to say 2021. And so that actually brought in the first set of natural language capabilities where you could come in, describe with natural language, and we'll generate the power effects or the code for you. And so that was kind of our first foray in it 2 years ago. We then brought example to code, where you can give an example of what you want a field to look like, and we'll write the transformation for you. And then we brought express design, which is where you can draw an image of a form or use Figma, and we'll generate an app from that. So we've kind of gone through these building blocks of, natural language to formula, example to formula, image to app, Figma to app. And now what we've rolled out now is this true natural language to app. So I can come in, just describe what I'm trying to build, and I'll get a complete functioning app, not just a single line of code.
That is crazy, right? But I think it's important for people to remember, right? Like this isn't something new for your team. Some of the people in your team have been doing this for, like you said, 2+ years that we know about.
Yeah.
So that's very cool.
It's really helped us, get in here early and get in here fast, is because the team's been working with GPT, with these AI technologies now, for 2+ years, in getting them into the product, finding the right way for them to work with Power Apps and with Power FX. It's those learnings have really rolled then into, how do we let you use natural language to build a whole app?
So crazy. So speaking of that, so Copilot for makers, I hope I said it right this time. I probably did.
It's fine. Yeah.
But so really cool, right? Like I was using it this morning, and I basically hopped in there and said, build me an app to track my Pokemon cards. Poof.
Business critical.
Very business critical. And what was really crazy about it to me, so yes, it hit all the columns, but it understood the data set. So it's like, with Pokemon cards, you need to track the different sets and the condition of the cards, whether or not it's in your binder. It knew all of this, and it threw in 5 sample rows of data that was like Pikachu, Balbazar, I don't even know. I actually never played with Pokemon cards, but it was just they were real Pokemon and everything. How is it understanding the context and pulling in that data?
Yeah. So this is where the Azure OpenAI service comes into play. And so really what we're doing there is, we're not using it just to interpret your natural language to say something like, I want an app to track Pokemon cards. But then it's also going and sourcing and leveraging learnings from the internet of, okay, if you were trying to track Pokemon cards, what types of fields would you want in table? What are examples of those fields? And then the way we've integrated it back into Power FX is we're translating each of those fields to the right data type, creating the structure for you, and bringing that sample data in. It's sort of a combination of some really amazing AI advances that's allowing you to give that really simple prompt of, I want to track Pokemon cards. And actually it goes through and creates those first 10, 12 fields that you would have had to think about and create manually to get started.
That was the next amazing part to me, right? So yes, it made up these fields. I would have never thought to track what set that card was part of. But then I also said, well, now that you're going to track that, and it did that as a text column, I said, hey, can you turn that into a choice column with all the common set types as choices? 3 seconds later, I had that. It transformed the data on the fly as well.
Absolutely. And I mean, that multi-turn sort of conversational sort of nature, it's not necessarily what you would think about when you think to create tables or build apps, but it comes so naturally because it's how we think about things. And being able to ask the Copilot to add a field, remove a field, change something slightly, it's kind of amazing how naturally you fall into it, even after playing with it really briefly, of just kind of okay, I can just ask it to do things. And worst case, if it can't do it, it'll say so. It'll say, I'm sorry, I don't know how to do that. If you think about it, for first-time makers, being able to come in and not have to really understand a lot of concepts, being able to just describe something and get an app up and running is super powerful. But also, even advanced makers like yourself, just that productivity gain of, you didn't have to go create those 8 fields, the choice column, and those types of things as well.
I think that's one piece of advice I want to make sure people take out of this, right? Is don't be afraid to ask it to do something. The worst it's going to do is say no, right? It's not going to make fun of you. It's not going to tell all your friends you asked a dumb question.
Yes.
Ask it, because the next step that I went to there, because Clay wouldn't give me any help ahead of time. He's like, just try stuff. But I basically said, all right, well then what are the column types you support? And it told me, right? I was like,
Yeah.
it'd been real easy to overthink it and be like, I wonder what it does. Just ask.
Hey, you're absolutely right. Like, and it's the thing we found most natural is that people talk to it in really different ways. Some people write very elaborate descriptions of the app they want. Some people go in and just go inspections and put in one word. It's able to interpret both. You know what I mean? And sort of to your point, the worst case scenario is it says it doesn't know, or it asks a follow-up question, or it gives you a proposal for a table that you can then tell it to change something, add something, or no, that's completely wrong, start again. And sort of use that conversational nature to get to the right state.
Yeah, that is the super thing, right? It's like you just have to ask, let it do its thing. It also it'll give suggestions. So if you aren't as smart as me and can't come up with great prompts, right? I asked one time, I was like, all right, now look at my data that after I like changed a bunch of columns, I was like, what would you suggest I do to make this data set better before I make the app? And it made some suggestions. It said, do you want more? I just kind of drilled through until I found some suggestions. Like, oh, that would help my app.
Yeah, and that's one of the great parts about it is not only does it create that initial table for you, but even if then you kind of look at it and you go, what other fields might need or data that I would want, you can literally just in the chat say, give me suggestions, and it will come back with 3 or 4. You could add this field, which is relevant. You could do this type of data. You could remove this. So even if you get stuck, the Copilot will kind of help you along of other changes that you might want to make.
Just
But
make
I agree. It's really cool the first time going through and seeing it create what you're describing.
Yeah, just make sure you say please and thank you, right?
And you, yes, that's also, by the way, an interesting one. Even as we've obviously been playing with it for a little bit internally now, and it's really interesting just to see how different people talk to the Copilot. Some people, like I said, very matter of fact, the specific task. Others kind of say, "Hi, could you please add this, add remove it." Even that has been interesting in itself for me.
Hey, I watched the Terminator movies. I'm hedging my bets. I'm gonna say please and thank you.
And that's a good segue. If folks are interested, they should go look at the Microsoft Responsible AI content.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? A lot of the work that we do on these features, and Microsoft has been a leader in it, is really making sure that we're being responsible in, you know what I mean, what you can do with the AI, what the AI does, what we do with your data around it. So there's a great range of content at aka.ms/privacy that folks can have a look at and get a good understanding of it, sort of top to bottom.
Yeah, and that's absolutely right. The more it's becoming part of our lives, we should understand what's going on there and appreciate that some companies like Microsoft are choosing to do the right thing with the data. When you go plug in these random websites on the internet, be careful.
Yeah, and like we're very transparent with how we're handling it, what we do with it, you know what I mean, and sort of how you can control it. And the nice thing about that privacy link is it's actually all of the Microsoft products in one place, so you can kind of go get an understanding of what we're doing across the company.
So speaking of other things I did with it, I said, hey, do documentation for my table. It wrote it up so I could, pass that along, make my manager and PMs happier. I then turned around and said, hey, document the app you're about to create for me. First time I did that, it worked great.
Yeah.
The second time I did that, it's like, no, I don't do that here. So, like, how does that happen? Like, I would just think the canned response would have just kind of filled in the blanks and spit it back at me. Like, why did I get different results with different passes?
And look, a lot of that is really the evolution of different AI models. And if you go back 10 years, the things that we used to refer to AI, they were very much like, with this prompt, give this response.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Really, really basic. The models we work with today and the ones we have in the product, they have more creativity to them. And that means that the responses can vary. But it's also how you get such amazing responses like that Pokemon table,
Yeah.
because it sources content from the internet. The model is learning, and we make improvements to it. And so that will mean that responses will change as it interprets your answer and as the model evolves. Sorry. And so I think the thing to keep in mind there, we put a nice little disclaimer right in the product saying AI results can vary.
Yeah.
we put a lot of time in making sure that put the right guardrails on the product so that the model can operate at its best and be safe. But also the really nice part about it, as people get hands-on and as they watch your demo, you'll see that what it's really doing is proposing things to go into your app. So you're seeing a proposal for a table. It hasn't created it yet. So you get an opportunity as a maker, and like, because it's not, you know what I mean, it's not replacing the maker, it's the maker's co-pilot to help them through and be more productive. And so what you'll see is you get to see the final table of what it's going to create before it goes and puts that into your environment and creates the app. And so I think that's kind of that last control of, even if the answers are a little bit varied, you as the maker are still plugged right into the process.
Copilot working together. So
Exactly.
speaking of the app, right? We haven't talked about that much yet, but so in the app now, you've built this tool that I pointed at my Dataverse data, right? So in this case, the Pokemon cards that just got created.
Yep.
And now I can ask it for information. So I can say, hey, what is my most popular card? Or how many cards do I have in this set? Or what is the range of firepower or whatever? Like what is that? Is that the GPT model kind of looking at my data and then just crunching it real time for me? Like what's happening there?
Yeah. So, and this is actually, I mean, the maker stuff is really cool. Obviously, with my background, I'm super excited about
Yeah.
it. The power that the app Copilot control is bringing is actually kind of amazing, because it effectively gives every low code maker in Power Apps the ability to bring all those cool conversational things we've just spent time talking about into their own app. And so what you can do is literally drop this control on and say, yeah, this is the data source that I want connected to this control. And then you can sit there and ask it questions just like that. If you were talking about inspections, what's the most common type? What's the average duration? And you can start getting it to, do all those types of things that people have been playing with in a lot of the public models, but do it in a much more targeted context about their data. And so I think like that evolution of allowing everyone to kind of bring this really amazing conversational power that we've been talking about into their own apps is going to be amazing to see as people start adopting this and bringing it into their apps.
Yeah, and so what I did this morning was I went out to ChatGPT and I said, "Hey, make me up 10 FAQ questions with sample answers for a small manufacturing company."
Mm-hmm.
Spit me out some data. I went and put that in Dataverse. I then pointed that tool at that data and I started asking it vague questions, and it was able to surmise from just reading these FAQs about my fake company. I was pretty impressed that it was combining answers into one. Like it was really interesting.
Yeah, it's really amazing. And I think where a lot of the scenarios we've at least been playing with it internally is things that you would have typically had to go do filtering or charting, or maybe export the data to Excel to kind of get averages or calculations. Just being able to do that so quickly on the fly directly in the Copilot control is amazing. And I think it's going to give app makers a lot of flexibility. When you're building an app and you think about, okay, out of all my requirements, I can build 80% into the UI. You've got this amazing power with Copilot to sort of support a lot of scenarios that you don't want to necessarily have to build every single field and every single form to support. Copilot can really help out there.
That is pretty awesome. And so speaking of Copilot helping, like I've had it for a couple hours. I'm already bought in. I'm in love with it. But now all of a sudden I want more, right? Like I want to use it to edit existing tables. I want to say, hey, go analyze this SharePoint list and build me a Dataverse similarity of this and an app around. Like I want it to start to reach outside. And so can you give me any hints of like what can I look forward to you growing
Only
to?
hints.
Okay.
And look, what I'll say is, it's a super exciting area for us. We have absolutely no intention of stopping. And I think, what I mean, from the maker side, the focus is really how do we make, all of our low code developers and all of our makers, as productive as they as they can be, and help. And so that's ultimately where the Copilot investments will go there. You know what I mean? What are things we can help makers with? And then similarly on the app Copilot side, how do we enrich and make every Power App sort of the most intelligent version of that app it can be? So I would continue to say, keep an eye on it. There'll be exciting developments on both fronts. But yeah, that's all the detail I'm going to give you for now.
Fair enough. Fair enough. All right. 2 questions. First one's a tricky one. Is this going to replace my job as a maker?
Absolutely not. And like, honestly, we talk about it as a Copilot because it really is. And I think what you'll notice is even the scenario you went through today in creating an app, it didn't sort of remove any really tough sort of design decisions for you. But ultimately what it did was you didn't go and create 10 fields. And like, even though each one of those is only a few clicks, it went and did that for you. It went and got sample data so you could get started and ultimately landed you in a responsive app. And so our goal with this technology is how do we make, AI just another member of your team that, can help you and support you as you're trying to build apps so that your apps are, better, faster, and ultimately you can produce them, as fast as you want to or need to.
Yeah, that's perfect, right? Like I asked you the question. In reality, I don't even think about that, right? I'm always telling people like, this is my friend. It makes me the quote unquote 10x developer, right? It makes me bigger, better, faster, more efficient in this, especially those of you that work in a silo where you're the only app maker you know. Now you got a friend.
Exactly. You've got someone to support you, someone to ask questions, someone to go do a task that was going to take you 15 minutes. They can go do it in 10 seconds.
Love it. All right. Last but not least, is there anything else? Like, did I miss anything? There's something I was supposed to ask about that I should be more excited about that I didn't hit this time?
No, look, as having a look at the AI functionality and Power Apps ideas that's already in the product, Copilot as we roll out now. Even if it's not available for you first up, there's a wait list that you can join so that we can get people in and get people hands on. The other thing that I would point to is, a couple of weeks ago, we had the AI Builder announcements with ChatGPT and OpenAI services as well. So there's a lot. If people are interested in how this technology can help them build apps and build solutions, there's a lot already out there. On top of the stuff that's already coming today that people can get their hands on and go explore.
Yeah, I did that one on AI Builder invoice processing, right? And it can replace a whole human in the average office, right? It can be that first layer of batch entry for you that you can validate against. There's just so much power. And that's one of the things I've always loved about the Power Platform is that you've democratized AI, right? You've made it so that the average person who doesn't know Python and machine learning and all those fancy buzzwords, they can use AI just by hopping in, using a wizard and answering some questions.
Absolutely. And look, and that's the goal. And not even people that just necessarily couldn't do it, but we've removed just a lot of the work to get there. And so even if technically you could go write that code and connect to the service directly and build a chat control, why? If there's one there that you can hop on, plug your data into and roll out to your apps.
Clay, thank you very much for joining us. I'm ready to hang up with you so I can go play with some more of this and keep kicking the tires. Thankfully, I got it early on the preview. If those of you that haven't, right, make sure you sign up so you can get it as soon as possible. And thank you again, Clay.
Thank you for having me, Shane.
All right. And then if you want to see my video on how to build and get started with this, just click up there and I'm going to, or up there, I don't know, one of those directions, and I will put out the video for you to take advantage of that and see how I build my first one of these. That I'm going to say thanks and have a great day.